Viper riders, Biker Mike here, back out in the shop doing some preventative maintenance to the old RTX Viper before the season gets underway. Thought I would grease up my drive shaft bearings, both the Jackshaft and the drive shaft. So you can see here I've already got the clutch off and I've disassembled the footwells. They're right there and there, and took the brake caliper off. Now the brake caliper's got to come off all in one unit with the rotor on it, and it's held into place from behind underneath in the tunnel by 3 bolts. They're right there. You can see this cover plate just goes on. That's what the bolts go into and tie into the brake caliper. So it's a little tricky doing everything with the skid still in, but I think it can be done. So I've already got it apart, and it came apart pretty easily. Wasn't too bad, just a lot of Loctite on those caliper bolts, so you had to work at that for a bit. But I'm going to clean up this bearing surface with a little bit of Varsol and a toothbrush and some compressed air. Same with the Jackshaft bearing up there. And then what I'm going to do is just pop the seal off and make sure there's lots of grease in there on both the Jackshaft and the drive shaft bearing, which is right in the brake caliper. So I just got a paint can inside there, but that's what's holding up my brake caliper, just so I can work on the bearing without taking it out. So I'm just gonna get going here and clean up the seal surface before I pop that off. See how much grease is in there. I've got about 4,300 kilometers on my snowmobile, so it'll be interesting to see how well lubed these are. The bearings are still fine. I just want to do a little bit of preventative maintenance and have a look to see if they're dry or if there's been water contamination or whatever in there. So here we go. I'm going to clean that up and let you guys watch. Okay, you can see there is grease in there. There's no rust yet, but you can see it can probably use some more. So I think I'm just going to add more grease in there and make sure it's all lubed up good. Okay, you can see I got that bearing all packed up. I didn't like totally pack it completely full, but I definitely added quite a bit more grease. And what I ended up using was some molybdenum disulfide grease mixed with some synthetic grease that I had in the shop, and I just kind of worked it in there with my fingers. Just gonna pop the seal back into it and clean it up a bit. Now I just have to reinstall this little retaining ring. Okay guys, just got the seal off the Jackshaft bearing, and have a look at that. 4,000 kilometers. Yeah, that's not very good. Definitely in need of some grease. So I made up this little gob of molybdenum disulfide grease mixed in with some synthetic wheel bearing and chassis grease. And I'm gonna make sure that is all gooped up with some grease. And I'll clean up the seal and put the seal back on. So yeah, drive shaft bearing. Still had some grease in it, but this one, not so much. Okay guys, I got it all packed full of grease there. I just got to pop the seal back on and put it all back together. So there we go, both seals back on, both bearings all repacked. So I just have to assemble everything back together. I'll start off by putting the brake pads back in the caliper, put the rotor back in there, and kind of finagle it on down in there to the end of the drive shaft. bolt it up from behind, and then put my footwells back in, and then the secondary clutch. Okay, getting this on with the skid still in is pretty tricky, but it can be done. It's probably easier if you remove the skid, but I didn't want to do that, so I just hooked up a ratchet strap to the brake caliper and up here onto the spindle, and it didn't really take very much pressure at all, and that way I was able to line up the bolts, get them all started by hand, and put some Loctite on them. Make sure you spin them in by hand so you know you're not cross-threading anything. So there you can see the bolts are all started by hand, and I just gotta tighten them up with the ratchet and then let off the tension on the ratchet strap, and then that should pull everything in, allowing me to get this snap ring back on the drive shaft. Just a quick little reassembly reminder. Make sure you spray your brake rotor and pads down really good with brake cleaner. Get all that grease off there from your hands, trying to wiggle that thing back on there. So now I just got to put the secondary clutch back on. There's a little spacer washer that goes on first, and that all goes back together. Pretty simple, self-explanatory. This clutch has got the Thunder Products clutch in it, so it's got this real neat adjuster that you can easily adjust the belt and get the belt off really easy with just an Allen bolt and an Allen key. And then just put the footwell guards back in. Probably going to clean them up first, but yeah, overall was a little bit of work there just because I had to figure out how I was gonna apply enough pressure to the drive shaft going this way, get those bolts started back into the brake caliper. But just a ratchet strap worked really good, and it really isn't that much pressure at all on it. It just kind of holds it into place so you can get those bolts started. And then yeah, then just make sure you put your snap ring back on the end of the drive shaft, and you can see where they Loctited from the factory, so make sure you do that too. And yeah, I feel a lot better about that. Last thing you want is a bearing to spin out on it. Not that it'd probably leave you stranded, but you just don't want that to happen. So there you go, guys. Hopefully you like that video. If you like the video, like the video. Oh, one more thing. Get your grimy fingerprints off your white plastic. Just brake cleaner on a rag. Works really good. That's what I do. And yeah, definitely keep this in mind, guys. This snowmobile's only got 4,000 kilometers on it. And those, while the jackshaft bearing there was, well, you guys saw it, it was dry. So yeah, I'd really appreciate it if you guys like this video to go ahead, hit that subscribe button and the alarm notification. That way you can be notified each time I upload. I'm going to be doing lots of power sports videos on my snowmobile, my 2 dirt cycles, my ATV, and the old trusty rusty GMC Sierra. There's always something to fix on that too. So thanks for watching, guys, and Biker Mike out.